I would like to welcome everybody to the 30th episode of The Adam King Show. Yes, that is right. We have made it to 30 episodes. And on this very special occasion, we are bringing you the most influential American patriot in America today. There's nobody in the party that is doing more than this man. And so we're going to jump straight into the interview. We're not going to mess around this week. And I am so excited and honored that we get to host this specific guest. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our guest, the Honorable and Esteemed Attorney General of the great state of West Virginia, Patrick Morrisey. Welcome to the Adam King Show. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's terrific to be with you today. And I know we have action-packed agenda and segment, and I'm looking forward to getting into some of the details with you. There's a lot of big stuff coming out of our office, so this will be a good time tonight.
Before we get started, I want to thank you on behalf of America for all of your service and all the work that you do. And it's truly amazing, our decentralized system and how it fights for the people. Here at the Adam King Show, we've been very critical of the Republican leadership. And, everybody's so focused on 2024, and getting out of this situation means we've got to wait in this situation a little bit more. And that strategy doesn't do it for the people. And what you've done more than what we could have with the presidency. And so for that, I want to thank you on behalf of America. And on that note, I want to get straight into your accomplishment. You just had a tremendous ruling in the Supreme Court against the EPA, West Virginia versus the EPA, which was about modernizing. The EPA was trying to force modernization of the electrical grid. I don't know all the details of the case as well as you do, but essentially you won a landmark decision that the EPA doesn't have the jurisdiction to make rulings and laws, that laws can only be enacted by Congress. And this Supreme Court ruling has such a broader effect than just the EPA. This isn't you against the EPA. This was you against the bureaucratic state.
That's right.
And what some would like to call the deep state.
Well, look, you're exactly right. And this is probably the single most impactful separation of powers case that we've seen in decades. And what I'd like to do for your audience, if you're interested, is kind of go back a little bit in time to kind of set the stage as to how we arrived at this critical point in time, which made winning West Virginia VPA so important. So going back decades and decades, a lot of the bureaucrats, as these agencies were accumulating more and more power, you started to see the courts through a famous court case called the Chevron, that led to the Chevron deference, that people started to look and say, okay, I'm a bureaucrat, and I'm going to take these little ambiguous phrases, I'm going to twist them around, and then the courts are going to give them deference. Well, having the deference provided to all these bureaucrats in many ways help lead to the growth of the administrative state. Because if you're going to get deference when there's ambiguity in the law, you can use that to advance your own agenda. And more as we saw that, the regulatory agencies just grew and grew and grew, and frequently they were growing without any specific authorization or clear statement from Congress. I'm an old regulatory lawyer, so before I became Attorney General, I was in the middle of the regulatory system for many, many years. I used to write reply comments. We'd litigate when there were incorrect decisions made by these federal agencies. So I've always had a bee in my bonnet for the vast amount of power that the administrative state possesses. And I think if you stand for freedom, if you stand for federalism, and if you believe that decision-making is best left at the local level, then the state level, and then only the federal level in limited numbers of circumstances, then you have to be part of an effort to try to reduce the size and scope of the administrative state. Enter the West Virginia VEPA case. We know that in West Virginia, we've been targeted by the administration, the Biden administration, before that, the Obama administration. They wanted to change our way of life. We benefited tremendously, and America benefited from coal-fired power plants. And the EPA, for many, many years, thought that it had the ability to regulate these coal-fired power plants, and that they had the ability to reorder the nation's power grid. And as we pointed out for many years, they only had a very narrow sliver of authority in the area of carbon emissions. We would acknowledge that a little bit, but certainly not to reorder the power grid. So what did we do? Well, we decided to challenge the Obama administration going back to 2014 when they had their so-called Clean Power Plan. We went into the D.C. Circuit, we lost. Then we went at it again. Well, guess what? We lost again. We're 0-2 at the D.C. Circuit. Finally, we went back to the D.C. Circuit again, and we lost again. But you know what? This time in 2016, we went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we were able to set aside Barack Obama's Clean Power Plan because it was targeting coal-fired power plants. But it was also clear that this agency was seizing power that was never delegated to them by Congress. So then President Trump comes in, and President Trump actually puts together rules that we thought were reasonable, consistent with the rule of law. We defend the Trump rules in court. But a day before President Biden took over, the D.C. Circuit issued a major decision saying that the EPA had virtually unlimited authority to regulate carbon emissions. We stepped back. We said, no, that's absolutely incorrect. And so we filed a petition before the U.S. Supreme Court. So we obviously won in June, and we won on a very specific theory. We said when you have a major question of the day, something that involves a matter of vast economic or political significance, Congress gets to make the decision, not the unelected bureaucrats. Right. That's so significant, not just for the EPA, but for all walks of life. If you're a federal agency dealing with any major political or economic question, now the courts specifically look to whether Congress clearly delegated that authority to the federal agency. And if it didn't, do not pass go, do not collect $200, you're out of luck. Then go back to Congress. That's a huge victory over the deep state. And I think it's going to make it a lot harder for the bureaucrats, the administrative state, to run roughshods over our freedom and the states in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we all on this side of the political aisle understand that the bureaucratic state is a system that keeps the people oppressed and keeps the will of those in power to enforce it upon the general public. And there's so many overreaches of the bureaucratic state. Yeah. And the most amazing thing about this case that really makes me so excited and honored, truly honored to have you on our show, is that it regulates every one of these three-letter agencies, that they no longer have the ability to make laws. Only Congress has the ability. So obviously they have, they're going at you. They're going to try to appeal. They're going to, but this has nothing to do with the EPA anymore. And this has to do with now what other agencies can we go after? Is there stuff in the tax code with the IRS? Is there surveillance with the SEC? I know that you have a new case coming up with the SEC. You got some press on your situation with the SEC with the ESGs. Yeah. And I know that the SEC is trying to pass laws, and they're using. They all use these like really emotional ploys like environmentalism or transgenderism or any of the isms that make people shout at the sky. And they use this. And one thing that I've been really shocked at is the lack of media attention on this case. Have you made any appearances on Fox News or anything regarding this?
So we've been on Fox a number of times. I think it could use a bit more discussion. Because once again, this isn't just about the EPA. And of course, we were able to block a lot of Biden's effort to implement the Green New Deal. This is about this role of the federal government and the separation of powers, how the courts, the Congress, and the executive branch ultimately interact. And that's why it's so critical, because as you point out, it's not only about EPA, but take the COVID mandates. That all flows through. These involve major question of the day. The student loan debate. Well, that involves a major question of the day. That was not clearly delegated to the Department of Education. If you take the ATF, what they're trying to do with pistol braces, a big lawsuit that we just filed, that involves a major question today. So I could go on. And so the value of this case is that now there's going to be an opportunity for an independent review every time you see that there's not that clear statement provided to the agency. We get to raise this issue. We get to then rein back in these federal agencies. And that means this is the single biggest victory against the swamp, because when the swamp can't grow through its own devices, that's the first step in beginning to tame it and to make it smaller. Exactly. And obviously, smaller swamp means more power for the states, more power for individuals and communities to make the decision making. And I think that's the best model we can have for our republic.
It reminds me of Sun Tzu's Art of War, that when you're besieging a city, the first thing that you need to do is cut off the supply chains to the city. And by cutting off these agencies, it's essentially cutting off, and it's putting a stranglehold on the deep state. It's taking away their unelected amounts of power. And, just because I mentioned that, you're really not getting the press, on InfoWars, I want to do this right now and do this for you, because I really believe in you, and I'm disappointed with all of our leaders, and you really stand out amongst the bunch. So I'm going to direct all of our viewers right now to go right here and click on this QR code. This QR code is going to take you to Attorney General Patrick Morrisey's donate page. And Attorney General, you have a whole career ahead of you that's so advanced. I'm a little bit jealous having you in West Virginia, being out here in communist California. I want you to be in the
But hey, I got to tell you, the work we're doing in West Virginia affects the entire country. That's
what's amazing about what you're doing, is because every single thing that you're doing is affecting the whole of America, and it really goes to show you the balances of power, that it's not just executive, legislative, and judicial. There's other mechanisms by which the people have to regain our source of strength and our power. And I don't see anyone in the party doing it the way that you do. CPAC just happened. Were you invited to speak? No.
I was. So I actually went to CPAC, and I think that was good, and talked a little bit about...
Did you speak at CPAC?
Yeah, I was at CPAC.
Okay, good.
I talked about West Virginia VPA. We talked about a lot of the fentanyl menace with the immigration problems, and we're doing a lot of really creative work. So look, I have great colleagues. I want to take a shout out here. We work as a team. A lot of the Republican attorneys general, I have good partners. And I'll tell you that I'm in my third term as attorney general. We do have a good future in front of us. You know why? We take on fights and we win. Our batting average is very high. But by having that high batting average, we know that the Soroses and the Bloombergs and all these far left folks, these ideologues, they come after us because they know that we're in little old West Virginia, but we punch a lot higher than our weight class, and we deliver time after time, victory after victory. Look, we won big educational choice issues. We've stood up for life. We win on guns. We win on matters that affect everyday Americans. When people worry about inflation and the price of energy and the price of food, we go after all these ridiculous and unlawful energy regulations that have had a major impact in driving up the price of food, driving up your gas price, driving up your power bill. Those things matter to everyday Americans, but we also take on other issues as well, whether it's election integrity and many other cases, fentanyl, you name it, we're involved because it matters to defend our republic.
So you have covered so many different questions that I've had already. I mean, my notes, I have like pages and pages of notes here for this interview. And you keep hitting every question. You go back and forth in between my questions. I'm like, where do I go? But you touched on it right now with the with election law. I'm going to pivot into election law in a second. But before I do, I want to remind all of our listeners to please click the QR code right above the Attorney General right there. Go to InfoWarsStore.com. Purchase something from InfoWars. Keep us on the air. Keep us getting interviews like this to the public, interviews that are not being spoken about, guests that are not getting enough publicity. Attorney General, we average 20 million views a day on our live stream. This is the InfoWar. And this is the real home for all of us. It's not Fox News.
Well,
the people's home is InfoWars.
And Adam, I want to point out, first I want to thank you for this, because if you're going to go and you want to click on, you can go to teammorrisey.com. you can actually look at all the different initiatives we've been involved in. I think our batting average in the courts has been about 700 or so. I mean, the AGs have been killing it over the last year, but we're sensitive, we're careful, we take on the right cases, and we try to be strategic, and it's about winning and defending our Constitution. Look, the other side has been pouring time and effort to undermine our Constitution and move us to become a socialist and authoritarian society, and we need to step up and fight. That's what I do, and we've had a darn good batting average doing it. But when you go online, it might be $20, $50, $100. People can give, quite frankly, any amount up to $18,000, but it helps. It makes a difference, because then when the Soroses and the Bloombergs come, we have the ability to fight back. And you know that I'm not a big favorite of the media, because I call people out, I tell the truth, and we fight. But we fight strategically and we win. It's not just being a conservative fighter, it's delivering, having a record of accomplishment to save our republic.
And we want to have your back. So I'm going to put that QR code again that takes our audience directly to your donate page right there. I want everyone listening right now to give him anything that you have. This is the #1 hero in America, and you got to get his back. If you care about America, if you're sitting on Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp, complaining about everything with your friends, giving him $20 is much more efficient than complaining with your friends. So I want everybody to click that QR code, go directly to Patrick Morrisey's website, take a peek at everything he's doing, and give him money. This is our hero right here. And I'm a little bit disappointed that you might run for governor or senator. I want you to run for president 2024. I'm sick of all these all the DeSantis Trump nonsense. It's like, just get over it. We need more people than DeSantis Trump if we're going to carry this whole country. We need Carrie Lakes. We need new people. We need Adam Kings. We need all the party to be unified. And right now, the party seems to be very galvanized towards how they can walk a fine line between the alt-right and the Democrats. And that's where they want to exist. But the people of this country are more aligned with the alt-right than they are with the Democrats or the Republicans to begin with. We're sick of the bureaucratic state, and we want to move forward. But a minute ago, you gave a shout out to some of your attorneys generals, your attorneys general, on the, and I want to point out there's like 13 to 20 of you guys, depending on the case, that are all taking names together. And one of them that I think is a superstar, Daniel Cameron of Kentucky.
Good man, yeah.
His case against Vanguard and BlackRock, and I was wondering maybe you could touch on that, because he's going after the ESGs as an antitrust thing. And these two companies by 2028 are supposed to own almost all the companies in all of the world, 98% of all the companies in the world.
Yeah, this is, Adam, you raised a really good point. So this ESG issue is a major threat to the private marketplace here in the United States. And if you care about capitalism and free markets, then you should be deeply worried about ESG. So what people like Daniel Cameron are doing, what I'm doing, what other state attorneys general are doing, is that we're looking at the litany of attacks that are being lined up by the left. They're using some of these big institutional investors. It could be the BlackRock, it could be the Vanguard, it could be others. And what they're trying to do is set up these new metrics that really have nothing to do with return on investment or returning money back to people. Usually, Adam, as you know, when people want to invest in a particular mutual fund, they say, what's going to return for me, the investor, right? Well, these guys are focused much more on their political agenda as opposed to what's going to return back for people. And they're trying to force folks to adopt broad new measures that actually are not permitted under the law. So, for instance, I'm out in front. I'm working with Daniel Cameron as we're tackling the Securities and Exchange Commission. They have these new ESG rules. It's a pleasant sounding name, environmental social governance, right? And they want to transform the SEC into being an environmental regulator, to being a diversity regulator, regulating what kind of foods you should eat, what campaign contributions you should make. It's absurd at every level, and it's not permitted under the law. And Adam, in fact, if you go back to the West Virginia v. EPA case that I mentioned, that's yet another example of how we're going to beat back the other side. Congress never provided authority to the SEC or all these agencies that want to deploy these new metrics. So we're pushing back against that. Daniel Cameron, he's actually
Exactly.
running
So
for
your previous wins now set precedent for your future
correct.
wins.
Yeah, and Daniel's running for governor of Kentucky. He's a really good man. I've stepped up to endorse him. I think he's
Get them on the
terrific. And
show. Get all these guys
yeah,
on the show. We want to
absolutely. No,
help. We're in
he's
the
terrific.
fight.
You know, if you live in Kentucky, go out and support Daniel Cameron. He's just a good man, and he's ferocious. You know, he's going to be pushing back really hard, and that's what we're doing here in West Virginia as well. So this ESG menace, think of it as the death of the free marketplace, because the SEC is trying to be the regulator of all these other politically correct causes. But last time I checked, when they were making these amendments in the early 1930s, they were trying to protect against securities fraud, and they were trying to protect investors. Now they're trying to make up new authorities, and that's just not going to cut it. We're going to fight back. We're going to win. We're going to have another big victory against the SEC if they go through and finalize this.
Amen. I'm going to buy myself a bottle of booze that day to celebrate. I want to point out another amazing strategy on that SEC case that you guys are doing is that not only are you going after them for antitrust, but you guys are going after Vanguard and BlackRock for collusion. Now, is there any criminality involved that could possibly be involved between the SEC, Vanguard, BlackRock, collusion, and Gary Gensler? Because we are, as we saw with that crypto scam, Gary Gensler was all over that thing. So like, there's so much that we could target against them. What do you think about that?
Well, look, I'm always sensitive as a guy that has to use enforcement discretion when I don't have facts in front of me. But I can say this. I know that what they're doing with respect to the SEC, all these other agencies, the FDIC, they're trying to transform their role. They know they don't have the authority to do it, yet they're just bowling ahead, trying to get it done. I think that's wrong on every level. This is an administration, a lot of these federal agencies, they don't seem to care at all about the rule of law, and they're just going to keep pushing and pushing. You know, I can't speak to criminal issues. I can tell you, though, from a legal perspective, they're dead wrong. They don't have the authority to act, and we need to make sure that we shut that down because, you know, America deserves public servants who are going to follow the law. That's what the executive branch does. It enforces the law. It follows the law. It doesn't write the law. And we need to get that message out across the country. And we need to set a good example that if you screw up, the state attorneys general are going to come and they're going to right that wrong.
They should fear you. You keep them up at night, Attorney General. You're the one who's keeping them on their toes. We appreciate you for that.
Well,
I want
you know
to
what? And they keep me up at night because I wake up every day thinking how I'm going to sue the Biden administration today.
Oh, God, I love you. I love you. Hey, everybody, I'm putting it up again. We got to get a donate right here. Donate to this man right here. This guy is on fire. He's going to win this for America. I want to talk about two other things that you did. I'm a huge advocate for homeschooling, and you had another huge win with the Hope Scholarship, and basically, you know, I don't want to go so deep into this because I want to focus on your women's sports issue as well. But I want to point out this was such a win for school choice that
it really was. Adam, let me tell you. Go ahead.
No, well, you're taking every single issue. Like the GOP has like what they think are the issues, and then the Republican people, we have what we know are the issues, and we're like a completely unified body, and these are all in them, and you're taking every single issue. You every single one you're hitting on the head. It's amazing.
Well, so when you look at the issue of education, what issue could be more important for our kids' future than getting our educational system right? And when you hear about this crazy critical race theory and what they're trying to do to indoctrinate our children across the country, you know, there's an antidote to that. And that means you have to empower parents and kids to be able to walk with their feet, to get the educational system that they deserve. So West Virginia decided to make some changes to its educational system because we want to strive. We want to grow economically, and we want to have a better educational system. And so our legislature passed a bill that is trying to empower a lot of these individuals who didn't have much money and the public school system wasn't serving them. So this would give the parents a brand new choice to put their child in a school and get some financial assistance along the way. it would be incredible for educational attainment. Now, along comes the left. They file a suit because they want to challenge it, because they have to protect, the unions. They step up and they have to protect every little bit of that power. We stepped up and we defended that law. And originally there was an injunction put against the Hope Scholarship, the school choice law at the local level, but we fought back. And ultimately, I want to congratulate our Supreme Court. After many, many months, we were able to overturn that decision, because I think people knew that providing additional educational opportunities for our families, our kids, our parents, that was clearly constitutional, and we were able to win. I think it's a great step forward for West Virginia. If you're looking across the country, know that West Virginia is making progress on our educational system. We have tax cuts that are going into effect. We're working hard to make sure you have the right culture, that that if it's in West Virginia, woke ideas and federal overreach will stop at the border. Come to a place like that and help us build a new future. We need more patriots to come move to our great state, because if you do, you're going to have an opportunity of a lifetime.
Hey, I've been looking for a reason to leave California, and Florida is just too crowded for me. And you're making me really hot on West Virginia. I think I'm going to go on Zillow after this interview and see what I can get. But I want to pivot into the homeschooling thing is a huge deal for me. If you want to end the brainwashing, you got to take your kids out of school. The schools are where they get them young and they brainwash them, and my Instagram is filled with the most disgusting videos of all the reporting going on of all the horrible sexualizations that are happening in elementary schools, and we at the Adam King Show empower all the parents who watch our show to fight for your kids, and don't give up the fight, and go yell at your city halls like Alex Stein, Primetime 99. He goes out there and yells at every city council and makes a scene, and that's what we got to do. But staying in the realm of schools, another big issue that's happening across the nation is transgendered athletes taking over and winning every single title in women's sports. Now, this has been something that you have spearheaded tremendously, and you're in a huge battle about this. Maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit about what you're doing for the women, what you're doing for women who have worked their whole life to achieve their champions.
Well, first of all, we may end up having a very important case going up at the U.S. Supreme Court in a matter of days, because the West Virginia legislature actually passed a law that made it very clear that biological males are not going to participate in women's sports, and that there would still be meaningful sports opportunities for them. But you had to emphasize basic fairness. And when we looked at Title IX, which, as you know, has been used to really develop and enhance women's sports, and you look at the possibility that women could actually be harmed if they're participating with biological males, there's a safety issue. The legislature, I think, appropriately decided to pass that law. And then we step up and we defend that law. Interestingly, Adam, originally a judge in West Virginia, federal district court, slapped an injunction against the law and allowed this transgender athlete to participate in cross country. And then we went through the process, and then we had an incredible development. At the district court level, there was a judge appointed by a Democrat, sided with us. He reversed himself and decided that biological males would not be participating in women's sports. We were really pleased about that. Unfortunately, then the other side filed the quick appeal. It went into the Fourth Circuit, and then the Fourth Circuit reinstated the injunction. And now we're about to go file at SCOTUS to try to reverse that. And I think it's important. To me, this is a very clear area of law. Unlike a lot of the talking heads or the people that appear in Congress, Adam, the two of us know the difference between biological males and females. And we know that it's constitutionally permissible for the legislature to draw distinctions to protect women's sports. It matters tremendously.
Yeah, this completely goes against the Gender Equality Act of 1972, which is, and one thing that bugs me so much about this is the other side comes at us and they say, this is because you hate trans people. No, it's because we love women. That's why. We love our women. We're going to protect our women. They work extremely hard to excel in their sports. And some of these people, especially, out here in like the inner cities and stuff, a lot of these people rely on these scholarships to progress their life, and they become
That's
the
right.
best athletes, and then they lose everything. We have a lot of professional athletes on the show, and there is some different functioning structure of how dedicated these people are, and to rip that dedication away,
Right,
is an affront to women. So
well,
we're doing this because of our love and respect for women that we will protect.
Absolutely. And in fact, there was a swimmer over at CPAC. I believe her name was Riley Gaines. She had participated at University of Kentucky, and she was there this weekend. She's been telling her story, and I think her story links back to what all of America saw last summer, where Leah Thomas, the biological male, ended up competing, effectively displacing so many women who had worked so hard for so long. And when Leah Thomas identified as a male, then that person was ranked in the higher hundreds, right? It was not that person's competing to win. So I think people realized, they saw it live at the NCAA Women's Championship. And I think that motivated a lot of people. And in fact, I think that's why America knows that states should be able to protect the integrity of women's sports. That's what our case is all about. And in fact, it'll help enhance and support Title IX. It's consistent with equal protection. And so I'm excited about it. And you'll be hearing news about that, I hope, in the next couple of days, because we're going to be going forward to the U.S. Supreme Court. And wish us luck, and hope everyone watching knows that we take on these cases. We're not afraid, because we're right on the law. And when they argue that you're trying to foster discrimination, that's just not true. I urge anyone to look at our briefs. We try to handle this the right way. But I'll tell you, women are worth protecting. And we think that sports are worth protecting, because it leads to a fuller life for these people that participate in those activities.
And so what are the implications? Let's say this goes to the Supreme Court and you win in the Supreme Court. Can effectively this become some sort of federal nationwide ban on biological males inside of women's sports?
Well, I think that you're seeing a lot of states step up and engage and put new laws in place. And this would be an opportunity to prevail on a very important question. So we're very hopeful. We think the law supports it. But we're going to have to see how they rule, when they rule, because we're trying to lift the injunction. That's the first thing that we're trying to accomplish. And we think we're correct on the law. So we're hopeful it could be a really good precedent. But what I would expect, Adam, is that if we are successful, you're going to start to see a lot more states step up and take action to defend that integrity in women's sports. That would be a great thing. And, look, if you're here and looking at little old West Virginia, we win West Virginia VPA. We win one of the broadest school choice laws in the country. We win and defend the integrity of women's sports. We're out there protecting innocent life. We're stepping up and we're leading the charge against this nonsensical ESG policy. And I could go on. We're actually, if we had more time, we'd talk about fentanyl. What they're trying to do right now, every state's a border state because of the volume of fentanyl coming in. We could go on and on, but I'm going to try to do as much as I humanly can to step up and fight. And then obviously I'm going to work with my other colleagues within the AGs, and we'll partner with governors and treasurers and members of Congress, because the Republic is worth saving.
Amen. Amen. And I know we're running out of time, and there's a couple more questions that I have that I think are really, really relevant. We touched on it briefly and kind of got tangented off on election integrity. And touching back on your case, the West Virginia versus EPA, and the limitations that it puts on the bureaucracy to make laws, how does this affect things like illegal ballots or states that, or secretaries of state that want to don't throw out names, and all the legal stuff that's going on? Is there any way that your ruling in the Supreme Court can then help out the efforts to provide free and fair elections in America again?
Well, look, I think that our West Virginia VPA case sets a really good precedent in terms of pushing back against governmental overreach, federal overreach principally. It reinforces the importance of separation of powers. Obviously, Adam, that applies on the federal level here, but that's not a reason why people can't look at the same kind of precedents that occur on the state level, because we know that in 2020, there were a lot of arguments that the state agencies overstepped their boundaries or that state courts overstepped their boundaries. I will go to my grave knowing that there was such vast overreach in Pennsylvania when that Supreme Court made a decision. I fundamentally disagreed with it because I thought the Pennsylvania Constitution was clear in terms of when the ballots have to be in by. So I do think that when you win in one area, you can use the precedents in another. There are probably some limitations because West Virginia VPA is a federal case. But I'll tell you this, every time there's an opportunity to make sure that the bureaucracies are held to the accountable standard of a legislative body writing the laws, we should be advancing that. That's what I do on the federal level. That's what I do on the state level. And I think anyone watching, if there's a legislator out there, know that legislators in Congress write the laws. The executive branches enforce the laws and can't reinvent them just because they have a different policy goal than what the Congress or the legislature have advanced.
Now, also with this ruling, does it protect people? You know, like for instance, the Trump raid by the FBI, and is there anything that your ruling against the regulatory state and the deep state it could prevent something like what happened to Donald Trump, President Trump?
You know, I'd have to give some thought to that. I think what it does is it really deals with situations when agencies are seizing power that they don't possess. Right. So I think it may apply for rulemakings. Certainly it can apply for certain types of enforcement actions. But in terms of a lot of these agencies, and quite frankly, some of these prosecutors, a lot of it is still down to their governance. And we're going to have to get the right people into those positions, whether you're talking about agencies, whether you're talking about the prosecutorial side, that there's only so much you can do with laws and regulations or court cases. At the end of the day, we have to get good people in public service making the right decisions.
Right. And there's also some problems with prosecutors, too, on the local level. I know that there's, like, for instance, in Morgantown, there's Soros-linked prosecutors who are refusing to prosecute shoplifting, for example, and which increases crime. You know, like one of the things, maybe could you, as Attorney General, overrule those prosecutors? And is this something that you think maybe should be a part of the GOP agenda? And also, like the same liberal prosecutors who are refusing to prosecute shoplifting and all this stuff, some of them go on the opposite, aggressive on conservative activists like Jay Sixth or that guy who defaced the George Floyd Memorial and Kyle Rittenhouse. What can a state what could be done to a state prosecutor to kind of equal out the balance from the Attorney General's office?
Yeah, so Adam, I think it may depend. It's all state by state. So, for instance, in West Virginia, if I thought that there was some error that happened at a lower level, we have criminal appellate, then we might be able to remedy that as we get up to the West Virginia Supreme Court and as we're dealing with the federal issues. Now, in West Virginia, I don't have the ability legally to remove those prosecutors. That's not within our purview. But I do think that it does help to have checks and balances. I know that when I was watching what was going on in Florida and other states, you want to have the ability to ensure that people are following the rules and that they're upholding the rule of law. So I do think having mechanisms, checks in place where people can step up and say, look, you got to do your job. You're an enforcement arm. You don't just get to do whatever you want. But I will say this, I still think that at the end of the day, we have to be even more aggressive at the ballot box to elect the right kind of people. And I'm fond of saying that if you're in an inner city, you know, you don't think whether you have a Democrat prosecutor or Republican prosecutor, crime is not partisan. We should prosecute property crimes. We should go after people when they violate the law. If you write a law, enforce the law. And I think we need to get back to that and make sure that there's a lot of education so people know when they see these Soros prosecutors that there's an alternative to them. And sometimes it's hard, right? You're in an inner city area and you might think that they're all woke. However, I believe that if you're in inner city, you want to be protected from crime. That's one of the core functions of the government, to provide for the security, the peaceful tranquility for people. So I think inner cities want that. Democrats want that. Republicans want that. And the more we can keep educating and emphasizing that, I think that's going to make a difference. But yeah, I think we should be talking about that more. I know that whether it's a governor or attorney general probably should have some broader powers. Some states that exist, West Virginia that doesn't, I have limits in that regard. But I don't think that it hurts to have additional checks and balances in place to make sure that prosecutors are doing their jobs.
One of the things that I always do is I have a huge network of attorneys that are very close with, and they all see how much effort I put on the show, and I've self-financed this show and put it on myself. And this is how I fight.
It's a great show, yeah.
This is how I fight back. This is my fight, because I can't sit any longer and be quiet. I've been censored from everything. This is how I ended up fighting back. So I'm always looking for ways to fight back, and I'm always inspiring my attorney friends. I'm saying, look, George Soros is taking all this money and he's paying these prosecutors to launch these erroneous, really rarely prosecuted cases, like, for instance, the Steve Bannon case, or all the nonsense on J6, or the Roger Stone fiasco, or the Trump in New York and Georgia, and all this weird stuff, and they go to these super liberal jurisdictions to enforce their domination over these people like Steve Bannon. I always wondered, if an attorney general such as yourself can fight fire with fire and launch frivolous cases on them, in this fight fire with fire. The Steve Bannon case was a simple misallocations of funds. I think it didn't even cover $200,000. Well, I'm sure in the vast hoard of Clinton Foundation funds, there's been a misallocation of funds in West Virginia. I wonder if we could prosecute these people, based in, the exact same methods that they're using to prosecute us and to silence us. We should just be using it to them. What are your thoughts on that?
My perspective is this. I think the best thing we could do, I was asked this at the CPAC panel the other day, and they said, what's the most important thing we could do to reinstill confidence in law enforcement in our country? And I think that the number one thing we could do is say that law enforcement is a noble profession and you should join it. And the best thing we do is lead by example and do the right thing. And so this may be a little bit different than what others say, but I'm a believer that when you look at what we do when it comes to enforcement of the laws, I'm going to be blind to political affiliation and economic status. And they're going to know every time we're enforcing law, we're doing it the right way. Now, I absolutely agree with you. These people are abusing and they're butchering the system, and they're trying to advance a political agenda through enforcement mechanisms. We need to call them out and push back at them. Now, we don't have very much original prosecutorial power in West Virginia through our office, but we need to unify people, let them know that kind of abusive tactic is not going to get tolerated. And there should be a response, reprisal, when people are abusing their authority. If you abuse your oath of office, then you need to be thrown out of office. And I think that's really important. But we have to make sure we get the right people in place. Obviously, we need good judges. We need good people in terms of the ethics positions and the legal discipline, because all that, if it's left to the wrong people, can be abused. And I think you want people to do the right thing. But, I'm a believer, set an example, because we are the folks that if the AGs or the prosecutors can't get it right and you're picking and choosing based upon who you like or don't like, I don't like that. I want to make sure that we're a beacon for America. I want everyone to know, when you look at Patrick Morrisey, I'm far from perfect, could do a lot of things to get better. But you know what? We're going to do it right. We're going to enforce this law. We're going to make you proud to be an American, that we're part of the greatest country in the existence of the world. We have a republic that's durable, and we have freedoms that are clearly enumerated under our Constitution. And we have levels of government that allow people to function in local communities and states. All problems don't have to get resolved on the federal level. We do it right, and we keep doing it. Show them that's the right way. I think that's the most effective approach.
Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. And I think you are also right about the big show that we need in the ballot box, come 2024 and every election cycle moving forward. And really, what you said, this whole interview, I'm so, besides all the research that I've done into you and besides all the fanboying I have on the side, everything you've said today has truly inspired me to move to West Virginia. I gotta say, there is, and I want to point out one more thing happening in West Virginia that most Americans don't know. Within the next 3 years, you guys are having a 50% tax reduction. Am I right?
Well, they tried to do the 50%, and I want to, quite frankly, I'd love to wipe out the income tax in West Virginia. I think that should be a long-term goal. But I think they have a compromise. And look, Rome wasn't built in a day. So I think it's going to be about a 21, 22% cut. And then they're going to have some other changes as well. But West Virginia is on the rise. We're going to be luring people into our state because there's so many job opportunities. We have 60, 70,000 available jobs. Come move. You call the Attorney General's office. We'll set you up in the right place to get you to come to the state. But I will put in this pitch as we finish up the segment. I would say thank you to you, Adam, and thanks to everyone watching. In this day and age, it's hard to know who's really with you, because the media goes after anyone who just disagrees with them, who's not bucking up the establishment. I used to practice law, and I, had a very happy life, and I gave a lot of that up in order to pursue this. But when you do the right thing, people come after you. And now I'm dependent upon everyone watching now stepping up and helping out. It could be $25, $50, could be $5. I'm not entitled to anything, but I'm willing to ask for a good cause, because then we get to keep pushing to defend America and look at the things that we've been able to get done. And we do that through your support. And that's what I'm hoping to keep doing. And if you like that and what you see, spread the word, because we need everyone in West Virginia and across the country, because the media doesn't want to help us. And a lot of the billionaires on the other side, they're going to come after us. But we can always beat them if we're righteous and we stand for the principles that made America great.
I want to thank you for coming on our show today. This has been a true honor and such a milestone for our show, being our 30th episode. I'm in such admiration of you and your work that you do in America. And we at the Adam King Show and all of our fans, all of our listeners on all of our platforms, we have your back, and we will not let you down. Anytime you'd like to come on the show, anything you have to report to us or that you want us to talk about and start spreading the word about, there's an open line for you. You are an incredible hero, and I expect to see amazing things out of you in the future. America's future is deeply entwined with Patrick Morrisey.
Well, Adam, thank you. I had a lot of fun being on your show tonight. If you want to learn more, go to teammorrisey.com, 2 R's, 1 S, and we're coming, and we're not going away, okay? We're going to keep defending our country, and we're going to do it with a smile, because you know what? We're right. We're not going to have our country fall apart and let them beat us and move us to be this socialist, authoritarian country. We're not going to let that happen. It's beautiful. We're going to win.
Yes, we are. And if any of our listeners want to get involved on a deeper level, our big financial listeners, we want to try to put on some real fundraising events for you. So please reach out to Adam at theadamkingshow.com and join the effort and join the fight. And it's our duty and our civic duty and our responsibility as Americans to support people like you. I want to thank you for joining us on InfoWars. It is a tremendous honor. We have amazing guests and great viewership. I want to remind our audience to go to InfoWarsStore.com, click the QR code, buy something, keep us on the air. The oppression is real, and they're trying to silence us, and we are not going to let that happen. So please go to InfoWars and buy anything from the store. There's so many great products. I got the Faraday cage for my phone. I love it. It keeps my EMFs out of my head, and I can sleep better at night. But other than that, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been an exceptional episode. I want to thank the Attorney General from the great state of West Virginia, Patrick Morrisey, for all of his work fighting for the American people and for showing up on our show today. Thank you very much, Attorney General, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Adam. Amen, brother.
Take care, everybody, and we will see you next week. Peace.
I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means, on infiltration instead of invasion.
You have all the money in the world. You have all the power you need. What's the point? What's the end goal? He said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society.
Party in the garden, the time was falling, love in the summertime. Ooh, yeah, yeah. And I'm unified, feeling oh so unified. In the lockdown, in the lockdown.
I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Every day, it's a gift. That's why we call it the best. We were born on the garden of Earth, with the flowers growing, little birds chirping. I was in the garden just having a laugh, till I met a monster cross my path. Hey guys, do you want some more trilla? I could get you lit up one of two ways. What's it gonna be, man? What's it gonna be, man? Say it, I felt like the whole world was begging me to rain fire above upon my enemies, till the love washed over me, till I let the love wash over me. Say it, I forgot the whole world begging me to rain fire above upon my enemies, till the love washed over me, till I let the love wash over me every day. It's a gift, that's why we call it blessing. Every day. It's a gift, that's why we call it blessing.
Cheers! Can we be saved?
We were going in a direction that was irreversible. This was not an election. This was a revolution. This was irregular warfare at its finest. We have what we call citizen journalists. We have an army of digital soldiers. You're here because you've made a decision about something in your life. You can't sit back. You have a responsibility. We must. You have to fight for this country.